Hi, I'm Gervase Bushe, one of the co-founders of the Bushe-Marshak Institute for Dialogic OD, and I'm here with Fred Miller, the president and CEO of the Khalil Jameson Consulting Group, arguably the premier firm in the diversity, inclusion, and equity space in America, and the lead author of our eighth book in the series in Dialogic OD, along with Monica Biggs and Judith Katz. The book's called Change Champions, dialogic approach to creating an inclusive culture. Thanks for spending time with me, Fred.
Thank you. I'm honored to be a part of the process with you. I feel really privileged to be part of the series and really happy to be associated with you and Bob Marshak as you help the world be a better place and expand the ways that we're applying our craft and helping people and organizations really be able to bring their voice to change. So thank you for your contribution.
Well, thanks, Fred. I appreciate that. And I very much appreciate the work you do. And I'm curious if we could start by just telling folks a little bit about how did you get involved originally in doing this kind of diversity work?
Yeah, it was an interesting journey, probably not necessarily a traditional journey, but I was born and raised in Philadelphia, inner city of Philadelphia. So kind of a black kid in this inner city, kind of trying to have a life. And many years ago, and it wasn't easy at all. And then as I went to college, I went to one of those historically black colleges, Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and started hearing about change and learning about change. And I had a professor of political science, Charles Hamilton, who actually wrote the book Black Power with who was then called Stokely Carmichael. So I was in class learning about Black Power before anybody else knew about Black Power because they were writing the book in our classes. And then I had a chance to make a decision about life, about what I wanted to do. Did I want to go and be a community organizer, which is many of my fellow students did, or did I really want to make a change in the corporate sector? And I felt like the money and the power is in the corporate sector, that if we can change the corporate sector, we can change the country and change the world. So I decided to go work for a large corporation. I had several offers, and I went to work for Connecticut General Life Insurance Company, now called Cigna. But that was back in 1968, actually, 1968. And it was a wonderful experience because they realized that life had to be different. They were ready for change. As many people know, the first companies that really started doing work around diversity were insurance companies. And they did that mainly because they had a vested interest, because having the cities be on fire was not in their financial interest. And so for many of the insurance companies, Prudential, Connecticut General being two of them, Allstate being another, they were very interested in how do we make a world different so that we don't have these explosions happen in our city, which is killing our property and casualty business and the money we have to pay out. So they were in the progressive part of that. And another company that was progressive was Procter & Gamble, which was a consumer product company, and saw a great opportunity of expanding the marketplace by bringing in more and more people of color and other people who were bringing difference to the table. So it was an exciting time. It was a time of opportunity and openness. And in these companies, they were, not all companies were like this, but in the more progressive companies, really saying how we need to be different. But the funny thing about Connecticut General, they brought me there because I was an African-American man and I would learn some things differently and do some things differently. But as I was trying to make change, one leader said to me, you know, this insurance company's been around since the Civil War. We weren't waiting for you to come to change. Whoa. Okay. I actually thought you should have been, but okay, I understand that. But I had an incredible opportunity to bring about change there. A colleague of mine, Richard Kramer, started a program called the ICU program, Intergroup Cooperation Understanding. And he did black-white workshops internal in the organization starting in 1972. And so the first company to do workshops internally around race was Polaroid. The second company was Procter & Gamble, and we at Connecticut General was the third company to do that. And then organizations started trying to deal with gender. The first company to do a workshop around gender internally was Procter & Gamble, and Connecticut General, we were the second company in the country. So in the early 70s, people were trying to figure out how do we make this work? How do we make these changes work? And I was very much privileged to be a part of that process and learned a lot and loved it and stayed there. I was at Connecticut for 11 years and I left there and I joined Khalil James. I had brought her in as one of my consultants. to work around women. And so I left there in 79 and joined her, and she and I worked together until 85 when she died of cancer. And so that was a major part of my journey. Then somewhere in that process, I discovered NTL, National Training Labs, went to T groups, learned about that, started facilitating T groups, were on the board of NTL, board of ASTD at the time, now ATD, Association of Training and Development. Yeah. And got involved with Tavistock, did a couple of Tavistock labs, both as participant and as facilitator. So I got a broad experience. This was kind of the heyday of learning and growing and developing. And a major part of that was around what we were learning and about differences in the country and in the world. And I just was able to ride that wave.
Awesome. I took a workshop with you back in the 90s, and you had a big impact on me. And it comes up in this book as well that you and Judith and others at Khalil Jameson have really focused in on inclusion as the core of your work. Not so much diversity, not so much, justice and that sort of thing. You can say a bit about why you think inclusion is the sort of the leading variable in making these kind of changes in organizations.
Yeah. And we touch on all of them, but we lead with inclusion. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't always the case. I mean, I was around in the early days when we were thinking about what we were going to say be the word after affirmative action. Mm-hmm. Affirmative action was the word. And as we talked about affirmative action, a lot of this in discussion with colleagues in NTL, affirmative action left out white men and left out other groups. And the bottom line was we have to do something that gets everybody in the tent, not some people inside the tent and some people out of the tent. And so Judith Katz and I, we were looking for a word, trying to figure out a word. And we were at a conference and we heard some people say some things, and all of a sudden, both of us just said, oh my goodness, it's inclusion. Wait, the new word is inclusion. Mm-hmm. I almost remember where I was standing when we started thinking that thought. Now, initially, there was a lot of pushback on using the word inclusion because in the area, in a community where people have disabilities, there's a big part of inclusive, and having an inclusive thing was big. So I got letters from people from that community saying, well, why don't use that word? That's our word. I felt like I'm using it in the corporate context. I'm not using yours. So I'm pretty sure we were the first people to start using that word in anywhere in the world. Mm. And it meant everybody. And it meant you had a role to play. We were, when we started doing this work, we were just coming out of the latter part of the Industrial Revolution. Organizations were still run like people were part of the machine and a clog. And Industrial Revolution was all about hands. People were hands and feet. That's your job. Don't speak, don't talk, don't do anything. Do what I tell you to do. And we were shifting, and organizations have shifted. They were shifting towards, they wanted people, what I call bring your brain to work. We want you to do thinking. In the old days, Judith and I did work at the Toyota. We went to the Toyota plant that actually was the one where people pull the cord. That was the big change about the production line. Before that, if you were on the production line, you were not allowed to stop it. If it was going to be fixed, it'd be fixed at the end. But more likely it'd be fixed when the customer got it wrong and they brought it back to the store. And so we went to that plant. We did work with Toyota for a couple of years. We went to that plant, and just to see that place where it really started, that somebody said you can stop something in process because you can make it better and don't just let it go, was wonderful. And that was the practice throughout all Toyota. If somebody sent you an email or a document or gave you something, your job was to make it better before you passed it on. Not just pass everything on. Make it better before you pass it on. So that was inclusion. We're going beyond hands and feet. Now we're going to bring your brain. I bring my brain. I have to bring all of myself. I can't, hands and feet, I can do this all day long. And I can think about vacation all day long. And say, I can't wait to get on vacation, or I can't wait for retirement. 20, 30 years from now, I'll be out of here. Once you ask people to bring their brains to work, I got to bring my whole self. I just can't bring a part of my brain. I bring my whole brain. So I'm thinking at work. I remember we were working with a utility company, and one of the men who do the pole, climbs the pole and fix the wires, said to me, let me see if I got this right. When I go to work now, I go to the office, I go to the shop, and I open my locker, and I put my street clothes on there that I'm going to change to my work clothes, and I put my brain in my locker, and then I go do what they tell me to do. You say, now I go to my locker and I put my street clothes in, I change my clothes, but I don't put my brain in my locker anymore. I said, you got it. You got it. That's exactly what we're talking about. That's the world that was coming, and now it's here. No organization can be successful without getting the intellectual capital and the brilliance of their people. You just can't do it. The problems are too big, too many unknowables. You can no longer have a place with only a few people. One person said to us once, I know we're being successful and more successful around here when I don't see the same people going into the same conference room to solve every problem. Mm-hmm. Yet in many organizations, you have that. And that means you're not tapping the brilliance of the organization. So all that got us excited about and continue, as you can see, being excited about inclusion and what it can do for the individual, for a team, and for organizational success.
Yeah, it strikes me that this idea of inclusion, it includes everybody. It doesn't create barriers. And really, it's what's underlying so much of what organizations are trying to do today. We're talking about psychological safety, collaboration, agile. You don't get that unless the whole person can show
Absolutely.
up. Right?
Absolutely.
And
we say around inclusion, around diversity, it has to tie to the mission, vision, and strategy of the organization. It's not anything goes. It's not we're doing that. I say that to my clients. I have one that is a social service agency, but most of our clients are not social service agency. They shouldn't be doing this because it's the right thing to do. That's a nice thing. Mm-hmm. But if you have it tied to your mission, your vision, your strategies, it has sustainability. Right. It becomes part of who you are, and that's what you do, and that's what you make happen, and you work it. And the hard times and the good times, it's important to you. If you do it as it's a nice thing to do, we're going to do it. Then when times are hard, you're like, you can't. What do we put aside? It's aside. It's got to be integral to the success of the enterprise. And when it is, it works, and it's got sustainability. When it's not, it's waste.
Yeah, and you see the returns on the bottom.
Yes.
And I know you guys have a real track record with that.
Yeah.
So this book is about the change champions kind of intervention. And I'm curious, when did you first start utilizing that kind of intervention?
Yeah.
And how did that start?
We were working with a client. Actually, I was at dinner with a client of a major pharmaceutical organization. And he was saying, okay, Fred, I hear you. Everything he says sounds good. And we want to make this. He said, how long is this change going to take? And I said, the book answer is it takes 5 to 7 years. And he laughed in my face. And then he said, I don't have 5 to 7 years. I said, wait a minute. I said, the book answer is that. I said, we can do it faster. I said, let's now talk about what we need from you and from the organization so we can have a change happen in 18 months to 2 years. Mm-hmm. And he bought into it, and we did it, and it happened. And that's what we're saying to our clients, that we can bring about a culture change in 2 years, 18 months, you'll start seeing it. Mm-hmm. And so for me, how do you accelerate culture change? And all the traditional ways were 5 to 7 years, even if they happened. Most of the time, they're not. And with the world changing so fast now, 5 years, you got new leaders, you got new organization, everything's gone. It has to be quicker. And so change champions is a great way to get a critical group of people in the organization, working their process, doing dialogue with the organization, having the leaders endorse them and support them, and having the people of the organization be critical and a core component of the change process. Mm-hmm. So we're hitting it on the ground. Mm-hmm. We're not bringing something in from outside that doesn't make sense to them. They are co-creating, thinking, dialoguing about things, reinventing, having things emerge that allows them to say, this is what we need. This will help us be better. This will help me be a better person in the organization and contribute more. This will help us be a better. And that, our clients love it. Our clients, initially they go, what? How much time? How much this? How much that and the other? And or they say, all our people are too busy. They don't have time for it. We said, well, let's set them to the orientation meeting. Let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then they do orientation and they start the process. All of a sudden they say, this is the most important thing we're doing in this country, in this company. Mm-hmm. I'm going to figure out how to prioritize my rest of my work. Because if we do this, I won't have the workload I have now. If we do this, we'll have less waste. If we do this, I'll be a happier person in the organization. And so then they are like on fire around moving through a process that speeds up the process of change in the organization, have grassroots connection to the organization, not something pie in the sky or consultants sent in, but something they have self-generated about things. I remember once we were doing an interview at an organization, and we were interviewing people from throughout the whole organization. This is the sun in Albany, New York, moving back and forth behind clouds. And we were interviewing everybody in the organization. And this woman came to the interview and she had a notebook. We said, "What's a notebook? You didn't need to bring anything to it." She said, "These are all the ideas I've had over the last 10 years, and nobody's ever asked me about them. And you said you wanted to hear my thinking, so I brought my notebook of ideas over the last 10 years." That is in organizations. It's true. There are people all the time thinking of things, having ideas. We're talking about it around the culture, but products, services, what we can do. And historically, people have been muzzled in the organization. It's above your pay grade to give an idea in the organization. And now we're saying, no, we need them. And the change champions speed up that process and allow people to bring their thinking to it so they can create an even better organization than that leaders who go in the same room to solve every problem could ever think about in the most expanded way possible.
Yeah. You know, reading your book, I had a lot of new insights around it, because the idea of change champions, you get a group of people who are committed, who are going to go back and on a day-to-day basis, I would say kind of nag people, makes sense. But then I realized reading the book, there's just a lot of things that need to be in place for this to work. And one that had the biggest impact on me was reading about the transformation journey that the change champions have to go through, and how you need, how you need to support that. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm wondering, Fred, after all the years that you've watched this, you've probably seen other companies try to do it as well, maybe worse, better, whatever. What do you think the number one mistake leaders make when they using a change champion kind of intervention, but do it in a way that's going to reduce its impact?
Right. I think one is not believing in the process and that it's going to be successful. As consultants, we talk all the time, trust the process, trust the process. Doesn't mean we don't modify it and grow and learn about it in journey, but trust in the process. Mistakes, we're going to get smarter. As we go through the change process, we're going to get smarter. So a lot of times clients want to know, okay, exactly what are you going to do for the next 2 years? Give me every step, everything we're going to do. It's like, I can't do that. I can give you where we're going to start. I can give you what we're thinking about, but we're going to keep evolving this process. And that's what the change champions do. They are a group of people having a learning community and growing and learning, applying those learnings instantaneously to the next step of their process, which is important. I worry these days, many organizations are conflict averse. Mm-hmm. So if there's a conflict, all of a sudden everybody's hair is on fire. And it's like organizations have to create a core competency around dealing with conflict. It's holding many, many, many organizations back. So this process is going to have conflict. This process is stirring up things. This process is saying the old narrative, we need to do some adjusting to it or maybe get rid of. There's a new narrative that we need to create. Some people are going to be resistant to that because it's going to feel like what I know how to do where a client wants, where the resistance was from the old timers who are like, I know how to work. The system's not perfect. It's not good, but I know how to survive in this system. Now you're starting with something new. I don't know how to operate in that system. So I don't know if I can be successful in that system. And so for me, a lot of this is staying with the process, with the modifications, knowing that there's going to be challenges, there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be people that are resistant. I mean, I say to our clients all the time, as we're trying to make a culture change, be aware the old culture is stronger than the culture we're trying to create. And that old culture is going to be stronger for months. And that old culture knows how to survive. It knows how to eat new cultures. And so we got to be ready for that. We got to be ready for all the bumps and all the resistance and all the challenge of the old culture coming at us saying, go away, I'm here, you're not here. This is what it needs to be. You got to be able to persevere through that. And leaders got to be okay with saying, this is going to be disruptive to the system. It's going to be disruptive to me personally as a leader, because they're going to say, we were with an organization once where they decided that they really were going to do inclusion and they were going to do diversity and really increase the diversity of the top of the organization. But it's an old traditional organization, blah, blah, blah. They had already committed to many leaders that your next step is here, your next step's there, then you go there, then you go there, then you'll be like king of the world. And they were like, if we now say we're going to be more diverse, those tracks that are already fixed for people in the next 10 to 15 years, we can't hold to. We can't do that. And so they made a list, true story. They made a list of who are those high potential, high people that we promised all these things to, because we have to call them and tell them the game's changed. We have to call them and tell them that those steps that we promised you, we've changed the game on you. We can't do that. Because if they stuck with the game plan, they would be forever before they got more diversity at the top of that organization. So they had to change. And I was like, that was courage. That was courage. I was going, oh my God, that's what I want to do. But that was courage for them to do that. And they did it. And they did it in a way that was humane, and people were end up being okay about it. They understood about it. You know, the fear of it was bigger than the reaction to it. But they had to explain it. They just didn't do it. They explained why we're trying to do it, why it makes sense. You still got a career track, but now you got more competitors on that career track.
Right.
You know, that job that was promised you is not promised you the same way before. Doesn't mean you're never going to get another promotion, but we got a new field that we're playing in, and we need you to be a partner in that. You're valuable to us, but we need to make sure that we have all the value that we need, not just for one segment of the population. That was a big for a major corporation in this country, and changed the playing field for lots of people.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like you could say that for just about any transformational change process. It's going to create disruption. You're not going to be happy for a while. Let's drop in. Well, thank you so much, Fred, again, for the contributions you've made to the work and to this new book. And we're just so pleased to be publishing it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure partnering with you. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about people reading the book. I'm excited about people continuing to make change. This world needs change. So if there was ever a time that we who see ourselves as change agents should be alive and needed to be doing things, these are the days. And I think the world's ready for change.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Purchase your copy of Change Champions, a dialogic approach to creating an inclusive culture from any Amazon site.